So you probably clicked on this video because you want to know if there's anything that you can do to make your quilting or your sewing room more functional. So I'm going to give you the tools that I use so you can design your perfect quilt room. And spoiler alert, it's not about creating a fancy Pinterest perfect room. It's about making a room that is productive and a room that works for you, not against you. So we're just going to focus on functionality and comfort and a layout that works for you. So if you ever find yourself tripping over stuff on the floor or constantly rearranging your tools, then this video is for you. So grab a cup of coffee and let's get into it. So let's start with the number one thing that helps make your quilt room functional, and that is the work triangle. If you've been quilting for a while, then you've probably heard this term. So the work triangle is just a fancy way of saying that the three most important things in your quilt room are within arm's reach. So that would be your cutting mat, mine is right here, your sewing machine, and your ironing station. I have a nice little ironing board that I have off to the side. So on my small projects, like for trimming things up really quickly, I can use this cutting mat and then go right into sewing and then right into pressing. So just kind of imagine yourself like a dancer. So everything should flow from one thing to the next without hesitation. So here's how you really need to think of how you work. If I'm cutting a lot of large pieces and a lot of cutting, then I'll use my cutting table, which is this area right here. And this table is at hip height. That way I'm able to grab my rotary cutter and cut at the perfect angle to apply just the right amount of downward pressure. And I will have everything laid out in a file that you can click to download so you can easily find the right dimensions for everything for you. Now, if I'm doing a lot of pressing, then I use this table right here. And I think it's like a kid's kitchen table, and it is just a little bit low for my liking. I'm able to grab my iron and really comfortably iron. And usually I am sitting about like this, leaning onto the table, doing a lot at once. Or this table is so big that to iron a backing or to just iron a quilt top nice and flat, there's plenty of room on this 3-foot long table. But if we are talking about the height of your chair, you want your leg to be at a perfect 90-degree angle and your arms, when you're at your station, to be at a 90-degree angle. And I do recommend a chair with lumbar support and something that you're going to be okay sitting in for hours at a time. I love my Aero chair. Plus, it has this nice little compartment for storing chocolate away from my kids. But not everybody quilts the same way, so adjust this to your needs. Let's say you're left-handed and you prefer to turn this way for your cutting. I don't really know. This is just how it works for me in my right-handedness. Now just imagine that you have your cutting mat on the other side and you have to cut all the way over here and then walk all the way over here to iron. You're going to add time to your project, and time that you necessarily don't want to be adding unless you need to get up and move around as you're working throughout the day. In that case, I would 100% keep things a little bit spread out. So before you even start moving furniture, it is probably a good idea to get yourself a graph paper and design everything. That way you know that everything's going to fit. Just looking at my space, it looks like I have a really large room to work with, but I just placed an order for a long arm machine, and so that means that a giant part of my sewing room is now going to be taken up by a long arm. So when you're sketching out your plan, use your whole area as one whole quilting room, but make sure that you have your little zones divided out in that area, whatever zones that would be specific for you. So let's move on to storage. I have my fabric stored up here in vertical shelving, and I want it to be all open because I like to be able to see everything that I have. And I'm still working on folding all of the fabric and putting it onto the comic book boards, but that is such a time-consuming process that I have too many projects going on and I don't really feel like folding fabric. I really like to have clear bins to store my works in progress and my UFOs in. That way I can very quickly see what it is and what I'm looking for. My scrap fabric, I have it all back here in this dresser. So it is organized red and orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. So if I pull out my first drawer that's majority red, and there's a white in there, I don't know where that white came from. And then my next drawer is yellow. And I try to keep these halfway organized so I can see what I have, but I don't always succeed at that. So sometimes it is a hot mess. I have lots and lots of greens, and this one's a little less organized than the other two. So I have lots of pattern books and quilting books, and since those are so heavy, I don't want them up here on the wall because I don't really know the weight limit of these brackets. So I keep those in the cubbies underneath of my cutting table. The cutting table's base is 3 of the 4-unit cubes. And so that works perfect for holding my heavier stuff and stuff that I'm not really getting into as often. So for my tools and my rulers and rotary cutters and just miscellaneous stuff, I like to keep it hung vertically. I have a pegboard over here. For the most part, it has threads and pens and pencils and stuff like that that I'll be using over here. And then I have another vertical board up above my desk that has rotary cutters and rulers and just miscellaneous stuff over there that makes sense in that station. So now let's talk comfort. There are so many things that can go wrong in the comfort aspect of your quilting room to make it to where you can't quilt or sew as long as you would like to. And I've already spoke on the comfort of my chair and the height of my table and my cutting table. But I also have a comfortable chair over here that I'll sit in when I'm hand sewing, or maybe sometimes whenever I'm editing a YouTube video and watching TV. So that's just a place where I can take a break without having to walk all the way back upstairs to sit on my couch. So for lighting, I cannot stress how important lighting is for your quilting room. Everybody knows natural lighting is best, but sometimes you don't always have the luxury of natural lighting, whether that be in a room with not enough windows, or maybe you're sewing after dark. I do open up my windows whenever I open up my curtains whenever I'm making a video, but I tend to keep them shut because I have fabric out that I don't want to get bleached out by the sun. Due to my lighting situation, I have lights that are turned towards me for recording, but a lot of the times I'll move those lights around. That way I have light directly on what I'm working on so I can see better. I also have these LED shop lights, and it is a wonderful solution instead of fluorescent lights. Fluorescent lighting, to me, they're loud and they blink, and I just don't like working under fluorescent lighting, so I like the LED lighting better. And finally, one of my other favorite additions to a quilting room is a design wall. Now, I have stuff all over the walls in my main workstation, but in the hallway over to my sewing room, I just put up a design wall on an open stud wall, and the design walls don't really work that great if you don't have something behind them. So I took 2 of the medium-sized moving boxes from Lowe's and opened it up and put it over top of those studs, and now I have something that's just enough resistance that I can push fabric onto. But it really helps to have things up on a wall so you're either not crawling all over the floor, but also that you're able to see the thing as a whole before you start sewing it together. Designing the perfect quilt room is all about functionality. I know that it's nice to have a aesthetically pleasing space, but don't worry about what looks cute on Instagram. Just focus on whatever works for you. Whether that be a comfy chair in the corner for hand sewing, or a cutting table that gives you just the right amount of space so you're not bumping into everything. It's about making your space comfortable and efficient, and ultimately the place that you want to spend hours at a time in. So remember, plan your work triangle, think about your workflow, use your space wisely, and make sure it's comfy. And before you start moving furniture, sketch it out. And maybe you need to grab somebody to help move furniture for you. That's perfectly okay too. It will save you so much time and stress to have a plan before you go to moving things around. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you found these tips helpful for creating your dream quilting room. If you have any tips or tricks, then leave them down in the comments. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you want to see more like this. Until next time, happy quilting.